You have probably heard that the average data breach costs $4.4 million. For a small or mid sized business, that number is almost useless. It is an enterprise average. So I'm going to price a realistic small business breach line by line: downtime, forensics, customer loss, insurance, the owner's time, and the final number is smaller than $4.4 million, but it is much more dangerous because every line could land on your desk tomorrow. Here is the company we are pricing. It is a 20-person professional services firm. Nothing unusually risky. No giant database, no dramatic hacker movie. One employee enters a credential into a phishing page. That credential gives an attacker a way in, and ransomware stops the company from working. We will start with the obvious invoice: downtime, incident response, and rebuilding systems. Then we will calculate the costs that do not arrive as one clean invoice: customer notification, churn, lost deals, higher insurance costs, and months of the owner's attention. That second group is where the math gets ugly. Finally, I will put the breach total beside the yearly cost of a reasonable prevention stack. At the end, you will have a simple formula you can use this week with your own revenue and payroll. No vague fear, just a number you can put in front of the person who approves the budget. Start the clock on Monday morning. People cannot open the files they need. Shared systems are unavailable. Nobody knows whether the backups are safe. Clients still expect calls, drafts, reports, and deadlines to happen on schedule. The company now has two urgent jobs. It has to restore operations, and it has to determine what the attacker accessed. Those are different jobs. Restoring a file does not answer the forensic questions. Investigating the attacker does not make 20 employees productive again. Even with good backups, real recovery can take 1 to 3 weeks. During that time, loaded payroll keeps moving. A reasonable idle labor cost for 20 people is around $1,500 to $2,500 per day. Revenue also stops or slows because work cannot be completed. Meanwhile, the owner is calling technical help, the insurer, employees, clients, and possibly outside specialists. The business is spending money while its normal ability to earn money is impaired. That is the meter we are starting. And we have not paid a ransom. We haven't even reached the first outside invoice yet. The first line is downtime. 20 people are being paid, but many of them cannot do their normal jobs. Using that $1,500 to $2,500 daily loaded cost, 10 working days creates $15,000 to $25,000 in idle labor alone. Then add interrupted revenue. For a professional services company, work delayed is often billing delayed. Some of it may be recovered later, some of it will not. Once payroll and stopped revenue are combined across a 1 to 3 week recovery, a realistic downtime line is roughly $30,000 to $80,000. And that is with good backups. Backups may prevent total data loss. They do not make investigation, rebuilding, testing, and client communication instantaneous. Put $30,000 to $80,000 on the meter. Next comes incident response and forensics. You need someone to determine how the attacker entered, what systems were touched, whether access still exists, and what data may have been exposed. Rates can run around $300 to $500 per hour. A small business engagement can land between $25,000 and $75,000. Cyber insurance may cover some of that, but only if the policy applies and the claim holds. Coverage is not permission to ignore the bill. Add another $25,000 to $75,000. The third visible line is rebuilding. Hardware may need to be replaced. Software may need to be reconfigured. Employees and technical staff work overtime. Emergency consultants cost more than planned work because the company has no time to compare options or wait for a normal schedule. That line can add another $10,000 to $30,000. Our visible subtotal is now approximately $65,000 to $185,000. That is before customer notification, before customer churn, before higher insurance costs, and before valuing 1 hour of the owner's time. This is just the part with the obvious invoices. Let that subtotal sit for a second. Here's the twist. The attacker may encrypt your files for days, but the breach can encrypt your company's attention for 6 months. That is the asset that does not appear on a forensic invoice. Every hour spent explaining the incident, reassuring clients, answering insurance questions, and repairing trust is an hour not spent selling, hiring, building, or leading. The visible subtotal hurts cash. The next set of costs attacks the company's ability to recover that cash. Start with the customer notification and credit monitoring. State requirements can be triggered by the data involved, not by whether the breached company considers itself large. Identifying affected people, preparing notices, sending them, and providing monitoring can add roughly $5,000 to $25,000. Add that to the meter. Then comes churn. This is especially brutal in business to business services. Your client may personally trust you and still be unable to keep you. Its vendor risk rules or contract may require action after an incident. Imagine a company with 10 meaningful clients losing 2. If those clients are roughly equal, that is 20% of client revenue. Real clients are rarely equal, so you need to do the math using your own accounts. Think of the 2 clients whose loss would hurt the most. Put their annual revenue on the whiteboard. Do not soften it. That is the churn line. Then count the deals that never close. These are harder to measure because nobody sends an invoice called lost trust. A prospect asks about security. The questionnaire now requires you to disclose an incident. The prospect then says, "We went another direction." You may never know whether the breach was the reason. The cost is still real, and the effect can continue for years. Insurance also changes. A claim may be covered if the policy is active, the controls were maintained, and the claim holds. Afterwards, premiums can rise. Renewal can become harder. In some cases, the company may face non-renewal. The next application also contains a question you can no longer answer with no incidents. Finally, price the owner's next 6 months. The owner becomes the coordinator for technical recovery, insurance, employees, clients, and future prevention. Some of that work may happen after hours. That does not make it free. If the owner normally drives sales or delivery, every recovery hour carries an opportunity cost. This is why a business can survive the technical event and still struggle afterward. Systems come back online, but the pipeline is weaker. Clients need reassurance, insurance is more expensive, leadership is distracted. Once those effects are included, the realistic total for a 20-person firm can reach approximately $120,000 to $400,000. That range is before any decision to pay a ransom. The ransom is not the breach cost. It is only one possible line on a much larger bill. Now put the 2 choices beside each other. On one side, a realistic breach range of $120,000 to $400,000 for a 20-person company before ransom. On the other side, the yearly cost of the prevention stack we keep discussing: a password manager, multi-factor authentication, immutable backups, basic Microsoft 365 work, phishing tests, and even fractional security guidance. A reasonable planning range for that stack is approximately $10,000 to $25,000 per year. Those numbers are not identical for every company. That's not the point. The point is that prevention is a planned operating expense. A breach is an unplanned expense that arrives while revenue, productivity, and leadership attention are already under pressure. Using the planning assumptions here, the annual probability of a serious event may be around 10 to 20%. This is the only security investment pitch I need to make. Compare a controlled annual spend with a 6-figure event that has a meaningful chance of happening. Depending on where your company falls in those ranges, this can look like a roughly 10 to 1 decision. Your finance lead can take it from there. Security does not need to be sold as fear. It can be evaluated as concentration risk. One stolen credential can create an expense large enough to change hiring, distributions, expansion plans, or the future of the company. Put those 2 columns in the same budget conversation. The discussion changes immediately. Here's how to build your number this week. Take daily revenue plus daily loaded payroll, multiply that by 10 working days, add $50,000 for incident response, then add 20% of annual revenue as a simple churn scenario. Write the result at the top of the page. The ranges will vary. Insurance may offset part of the loss if coverage applies and required controls were maintained. Your recovery may be faster or slower. The goal is not false precision. The goal is to replace "we will deal with it" with a visible price tag. Put that number in front of whoever approves security spending. Then ask which controls reduced the biggest lines. That is a much better conversation than debating whether your company is too small to be targeted. If that number made you want a real plan, go to viso.group. That is exactly what Viso Group builds for small and mid-sized businesses. You will find the link below. Then watch the cyber insurance breakdown on the end screen, because coverage can help, but only when the policy and your security controls hold up at claim time. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.